Barui's a good kick from 50 metres out. Oh, it's a beauty.
Williams tries to get around Blackwell, does so. Tui, haven't seen much of him. Back to Williams. Fell. Good lead, fine mark. And he's inside 50. He kicked 1 goal in the first quarter and looks to be a reasonable sort of a prospect at full forward. Shane Fell directly in front for Sydney's 3rd goal, and they need them. And judging by the silence, it looks like a public library behind the goal. It's 4 points. Parsons up. Tried to find Healy, who's been well blanketed so far, and I think Alvin kicked that. His opponent down to Gleeson. Gleeson inside 50, straightens, and goals. Great play from the Blues. Gleeson's first. On that occasion, who was Kelly. Kernahan has it knocked away. Johnston, brilliant on the bottom of the pack. The hand pass intended for Gleeson. Some soccer work, and he's got it!
He's played a brilliant game. Long towards half forward. Down comes Healy. Couldn't hang on. Alvin breaks away. Plenty of runners again. Reece Jones. Men outside him. He elects to go across to Hannah. Hannah swings it down towards left half forward. Unkind bounce for Dorotich, but he gets it back off Gleeson. And now Dorotich from 35 metres out gets the 10th goal for Carlton. Or is it the...
Dorotich making it look easy there for the Blues. 10-9. Gee, they're in a bit of form at Princes Park. And Sydney 3-6, 69-24. As we check the other half-time scores, Melbourne maintaining their advantage over North Melbourne. An even second quarter, they lead 10-3 to 5-9. 13 shots to 14. And the Bombers against Fitzroy, it's a one-horse race there, one-way traffic, 13-10-88. Fitzroy 5-6-36, so 88-36. It's Essendon over Fitzroy. Well, this week in the AFL, the big topic of discussion has been the state of origin and the announcement that the Victorian team will play against New South Wales on May the 22nd. There'll be 3 state of origin games this year, against New South Wales, against Western Australia, against Tasmania. That means Victoria won't be playing against South Australia. Ian Robertson and Bernie Quinlan, it came as no surprise, but I guess it's still pretty disappointing, especially for those fans in South Australia.
Yeah, well, Bruce, there were 86,000 people watched that game last year, and it was a tremendous build-up on the MCG. I know the Victorians won the game pretty easily, but Bernie, I really think it's a bit of head in the sand attitude, don't you? That we would turn around and play a game against New South Wales?
Well, I can understand both sides, really, Ian. You look at the AFL's view, and they're playing a state of origin game against a state that is supporting the actual national football competition concept, and the South Australian Football League, I can understand them as well, because they don't want to get into the National League before all the problems are sorted out. But well, the VFL, they don't, I suppose the player retention scheme in South Australia has got a lot to do with it, and they think the VFL, or the AFL now as it's called, if they get into that sort of scenario where they're playing a state of origin against the South Australia side, well, the coffers are of course swelled by the gate takings in that match, and so the AFL don't want to be a part of that.
Well, how many people do you think would go and watch a game, particularly played up on the border, between a side that, well, if they're all fired up, if they're fair dinkum, should beat that New South Wales side fairly comfortably, I would think.
Well, they'll probably throw a few Swifties and pull a few tricks in that match, and there'll be a lot of the Sydney Swans players playing in that match, but I don't think the crowd will be very big at all, because it probably will be fairly one-sided, and really they would have probably got 50 or 60,000 playing in South Australia.
So, South Australia not playing against Victoria this year. Ted Whitten and Graham Corns will be discussing that topic on Sports World tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying AFL Live. Back with the second half after the break. Hawthorn on the ground leading 9-6, Geelong 7-6. Cats still to come back. Absolutely perfect day in Melbourne and a big crowd in attendance, and they've seen a fine first half of football. It's been a spectacular start to the AFL season, with the 2 top teams from last year giving 100%. Michael Roberts is on the boundary line. Michael's been trying to get into the rooms at half-time. Have you had any luck, Michael?
Yes, I did, Bruce, and with the Geelong camp, they were locked up like the City Watch House after a pretty disappointing second half to that second quarter. But at the Hawthorn rooms, I walked up the race with Dermot Brereton, and he said he's got a long memory and he is gunning for Mark Yates at every opportunity. He did mention something about being tackled around the neck and wrenched his back, so he went into the doctor's surgery when he went into the Hawthorn rooms. As you can imagine, they were pretty tired. A lot of players resting, getting decent rubs for this second half. Alan Jeans walked around his players and he spent a lot of time with Michael Tuck, the captain, and he's done a tremendous job with Paul Couch blanking him in the centre. And he also out loud said that both teams were tackling fiercely and he didn't want Hawthorn to break it all.
Michael Roberts, as we look at Jason Dunstall, who had a big effect on that second quarter.
Yes, Dunstall, I think, is probably one of the keys to the game. If he can take a few more marks and kick accurately, he's about an 8 or 9 goal, potentially 8 or 9 goal full forward, and that certainly is a problem for the Cats.
Yes, Gary Ablett has continued his brilliant form from last season.